Imagine this, the spoiled son of a millionaire thought he could bully anyone he wanted. But when he tried to choke the black housekeeper's daughter in front of everyone, he made the biggest mistake of his life, because what he didn't know was that she was a trained boxer. What happened next left the entire mansion trembling. Stay with me till the end of this story, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Gentle Words for more powerful stories. The golden rays of the sun poured through the wide glass windows of the Kingston estate, the kind of mansion that looked more like a palace than a home, its white pillars gleaming, its marble floors polished so brightly that they reflected every chandelier like a mirror of wealth. Inside lived Daniel Kingston, the spoiled son of Harold Kingston, one of the richest businessmen in the city. Daniel had been raised in luxury, surrounded by maids, drivers, private chefs, and bodyguards since birth. But what he lacked, what money had never bought him, was respect for others. He treated the world as if it belonged to him, as if every person who crossed his path existed only to serve him. He was handsome, yes, with sharp cheekbones and expensive suits tailored to perfection, but behind those eyes was arrogance, entitlement, and cruelty. To him, kindness was weakness, and humility was something only the poor carried like a burden. Among the workers who kept the mansion spotless was a housekeeper named Angela. A woman of quiet strength, she had worked tirelessly for years, never complaining about long hours or heavy chores, always putting her daughter, Maya, first. Maya was just 19, a bright young woman with dreams that reached beyond the gates of the estate. She was tall, fit, and disciplined, because unknown to everyone in the mansion, Maya had been training in boxing since she was a little girl. Angela had enrolled her at a local gym to give her a way to defend herself in a world that too often looked down on women like her. While Daniel partied in private clubs and threw tantrums when his expensive cars weren't polished enough, Maya was at the gym, her fists pounding the heavy bag, her lungs burning, her body growing stronger. She wasn't just a fighter in the ring, she was a fighter in life, battling every obstacle, every prejudice, every limitation with grit and determination. One afternoon, when Harold Kingston was away on business, Daniel hosted a private gathering at the mansion. His rich friends came, laughing loudly, sipping imported wine, throwing careless jokes that dripped with arrogance. They wandered through the halls like kings, dismissing the workers as invisible shadows. It was on that day that Maya crossed paths with Daniel in the grand hallway, a tray of glasses in her hands. She had agreed to help her mother for the day, never imagining that the spoiled millionaire's son would notice her, let alone try to humiliate her. Daniel, with his smirk and his swagger, stepped into her path. "Hey," he drawled, his voice dripping with superiority, "aren't you the maid's daughter? What are you doing here carrying glasses like you belong in this house?" His friends chuckled cruelly, circling like vultures waiting for entertainment. Maya kept her head high, her calm presence radiating dignity. "I'm helping my mother," she said simply, her voice steady. But Daniel wasn't interested in her answer. He wanted a show. He wanted to prove that no one, especially the daughter of a housekeeper, could stand tall in his presence. In a flash of cruelty, he stepped forward, his hand reaching for her throat. Before anyone could react, his fingers pressed against her neck, tightening, his spoiled laugh echoing through the hall as his friends egged him on. "Look at her," he mocked, acting like she's one of us. "Maybe this will teach her where she belongs." The glasses clattered to the floor, shattering into pieces, but Maya didn't struggle like he expected. She didn't claw at his hands in fear. Instead, she locked eyes with him, her calm gaze like steel, her body firm, controlled. He didn't know it yet, but he was holding not just the maid's daughter, he was holding a fighter who had trained years for moments like this. And then, it happened. Maya's hand shot up, swift and precise, breaking his grip with a technique she had practiced countless times in the gym. In the same motion, she stepped back, her stance instinctively dropping into the posture of a boxer. Daniel stumbled, shocked, his arrogance cracked for the first time in his pampered life. His friends gasped, their laughter silenced, their eyes wide. "What the hell?" Daniel sputtered, rubbing his throat, but Maya's expression didn't waver. She didn't need to raise her fists yet, her very presence, the quiet storm in her eyes, was enough to freeze the air around them. "You don't get to put your hands on me," she said, her voice firm, her chest rising and falling with controlled breaths. "Not today. Not ever." For the first time, Daniel saw something he had never seen in anyone before, fear mixed with respect. His spoiled world had taught him that money and power made him untouchable. But standing in front of him was a young woman who didn't care about his last name, his wealth, or his father's empire. She had her own strength, forged in sweat and discipline, and it terrified him more than anything else. The air in the Grand Kingston mansion was heavy, silence wrapping around the golden chandeliers and marble floors like a suffocating blanket. The sound of glass still echoed faintly from where the tray had shattered, but what lingered most was the stunned hush that followed Maya's defiance. For the first time, Daniel Kingston, the spoiled heir to a fortune, had been stopped by someone he thought beneath him. His friends shuffled nervously, some exchanging awkward glances, while others muttered under their breath, unable to believe that the maid's daughter had stood her ground. Maya, still standing firm in her stance, felt her heart pounding, but she refused to let fear show. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind, "Never bow your head, Maya. You are worth just as much as anyone else in this world." Angela, hearing the commotion, rushed into the hallway. Her face paled as she saw her daughter, strong and upright, and Daniel, flushed with anger, rubbing his throat. "Maya!" Angela gasped, her instinct screaming to protect her child, even though Maya had clearly protected herself. She quickly positioned herself between Daniel and her daughter, her hands trembling slightly. "Please, sir," she meant no disrespect, Angela pleaded, her voice cracking, knowing the dangerous consequences of offending the powerful Kingston family. Years of servitude had taught her that even a small act of defiance could cost everything. Daniel, embarrassed in front of his friends, clenched his fists. His pride was burning more than his throat. "No disrespect," he spat, his voice dripping venom. "She just attacked me in my own house. Who does she think she is?" His friends, who had been so eager to cheer him moments ago, now stayed quiet, unsure which side to take. Some of them had seen the flash of technique in Maya's movements and realized it wasn't just luck. She was trained, disciplined, and dangerous in a way Daniel had never known. Maya's voice rang out before her mother could respond. Calm, but steady, every word cutting through the silence. "I defended myself. You put your hands on me, and I refused to let you. That's not an attack. That's survival." Her words stunned the room. For the first time, someone had spoken to Daniel without fear, without hesitation, without bowing to his name. Angela tugged at Maya's arm, whispering desperately, "Please, Maya, stop. Don't make this worse." But Maya shook her head gently, her eyes still locked on Daniel. She knew she was walking on dangerous ground, but there was a fire inside her that wouldn't let her back down. Daniel's face twisted into a sneer. "Survival," he scoffed. "You think you're strong just because you know a few tricks. You're nothing but a maid's daughter. Don't ever forget your place." He took a threatening step forward, but this time, it wasn't Maya who stopped him, it was one of his own friends. A tall young man named Chris, who had been watching quietly, stepped in front of him. "Daniel, enough," Chris said firmly. "She's right. You grabbed her first. Don't make yourself look worse." Daniel froze, shocked that his friend would openly side against him. "You're taking her side," he hissed. Chris shook his head. "I'm taking the side of what's right. You've always gotten away with treating people like trash, Daniel, but this went too far." Angela's eyes widened, her hands clutching her chest, overwhelmed with both fear and relief. Someone had spoken up for her daughter, a rich man's son, no less. Maya felt a small weight lift from her shoulders, but she knew this wasn't over. Daniel wasn't the kind of man who accepted humiliation lightly. Later that evening, after the party had dispersed in awkward silence, Harold Kingston returned home. The powerful millionaire walked into the study to find Daniel pacing like a caged lion. "Father," Daniel burst out, "the maid's daughter attacked me. Right here, in our home." His voice cracked with desperation, painting himself as the victim. Harold, a stern man with salt and pepper hair and cold eyes, frowned deeply. "Attacked you. Explain." Daniel exaggerated every detail, twisting the truth, claiming Maya had lashed out without reason, making him look weak in front of his guests. Harold listened, his jaw tightening, his pride stung that anyone would dare bring shame into his household. He summoned Angela and Maya immediately. Angela stood trembling in the grand study, her hands clasped tightly, while Maya held her chin high, unflinching. Harold's voice boomed like thunder. "What is this I hear, Maya? You raised your hands against my son." She defended herself, Angela whispered, tears brimming in her eyes. Sir, Daniel. But Maya's voice cut in, stronger, steadier, your son tried to choke me. I did not attack him. I broke free. That is the truth. For a moment, the silence was unbearable. Harold's eyes narrowed, flicking between his son and the young woman who dared to stand tall in front of him. Daniel, furious at her boldness, shouted, she's lying. But Chris, who had been there, stepped into the study. She's not lying, Mr. Kingston. I saw everything. Daniel put his hands on her first. She only defended herself. The truth, spoken by someone of Daniel's own circle, shifted the air in the room. Harold's face darkened, not at Maya, but at his son. He had built his empire on discipline and control, and here was his heir, exposed as a reckless, entitled bully. Angela broke down in tears, falling to her knees. Please, sir, don't punish my daughter. Fire me if you must, but she only did what she had to do. Her voice trembled with desperation, the years of fear and servitude weighing heavily on her shoulders. But to everyone's shock, Harold raised his hand, silencing her. He turned slowly to Maya, studying her with an intensity that made the room go still. You're a fighter, he said finally. A rare one. Most would have cowered. You stood your ground. Maya blinked, unsure how to respond. Daniel exploded, Father, you can't be serious. She humiliated me. Harold's cold gaze snapped to his son. No, Daniel. You humiliated yourself. Money cannot buy respect. And today, in front of everyone, the maid's daughter showed more dignity, more strength, than you ever have. Daniel's face drained of color. For the first time in his life, his father's disappointment cut deeper than any punishment. He stormed out of the room, his pride shattered, leaving silence in his wake. Angela looked at Harold, confused and shaken. But Harold turned to her and said, Angela, you've raised a remarkable daughter. You should be proud. Tears streamed down Angela's cheeks, but this time they were not of fear, they were of pride, of relief, of long-suppressed gratitude finally finding release. Maya stepped closer to her mother, wrapping an arm around her. For years, they had been treated as shadows in that mansion, unseen, unheard. But in one act of courage, everything had changed. As they walked out of the grand study together, Maya whispered to her mother, See, Mama. We don't need to bow to anyone. Our worth doesn't come from where we work or what we own. It comes from who we are. Angela smiled through her tears, her heart swelling with pride. You're right, my child. And today, you showed the world exactly who you are. And though the mansion was still grand, still dripping with gold and wealth, it was Maya's strength, dignity, and unshakable courage that truly shone brighter than all the chandeliers combined.